Want to congratulate you on a phenomenal final episode yesterday. What's the reaction you've been getting for it?
So, Lunga, I don't do social media. Um, so, in fact, I live in a kind of strange bubble where I have no notion of how people respond to it. So,
Okay.
today when I got to set, people told me that the response was pretty solid, that everybody seemed to like the show. I'm told now that Kabunina is complaining that we gave her much too graceful an end, that she wanted blood and guts.
Sure.
But that's our decision, not hers.
Yeah.
Um, so, I mean, the truth is that episode 12 was an episode that I struggled with. And but it felt like in the end it came together.
Sure.
Um, you watched it?
Yeah. Every episode. Uh,
Oh, okay. So what did you feel about about it as a
as a
final?
it left you hanging. It left you sort of looking forward to next season. I think it was a solid conclusion to the whole conflict between Zwide and Shaka.
Yeah.
As I've kind of had I've read up on on the battle or sort of the history of what happened, so I kind of sort of knew what was coming. And I just wanted to to just see how I think you got it spot on.
Thank you. Well, I'm relieved to hear that. Um, we sort of agonize over every episode. And yeah, I loved the end of the episode. We want some land that felt strong for me.
So,
Um,
that third season, is it? Are you busy with it now, or is there anything you can reveal
I
about?
literally, I'm this is my first day on set.
Oh wow, okay.
So, um,
So
this is
straight
why
out.
I'm in a trailer trying to work out how to do Wi-Fi.
Okay.
I just walked off set to speak to you. We are
Oh,
about to do lunch.
oh wow.
Um, and first days, always, they have their challenges.
Sure, sure, sure. And growing up, I grew up with the 1986 Shaka Zulu show. Um,
Yeah,
it was iconic in terms of how Henry Thaler sort of portrayed the character. But I think your
yeah.
guys, what you did different was, it's a South African story told by South Africans. Is that a narrative? Is that like something that you decided to do from the get-go? Because the original, the one from the 80s, was sort of told from a settler sort of like perspective. Is that how you?
Yeah.
Is that what like the plan of the season of not of the show?
Oh, no doubt. The point is that the last series had a European gaze. It starts in Europe with Europeans, and
Sure.
they come and they find an exotic king.
Yeah.
That was sort of exactly what we did not want. I mean, that's why we've pretty much kept any kind of settler presence until the third season.
Yeah.
So no, we wanted. I mean, our original impetus was we wanted to do pre-colonial drama. And so, in a sense, the first two seasons had been pre-colonial. And
Sure.
the third season, the few people that sort of enter Shaka's world are very much kind of white hustler adventurers. They're not powerful people. And they're very much in the thrall of Shaka. It's like he's the big guy, and they're these little guys kind of trying to score something around him.
Sure.
So, that's the nature of it. And essentially, if you think through all the kings right up until Isandlwana, when, there's such a huge defeat of the British.
Yeah.
It feels like all of that is a legacy of Shaka. That he put in place something that took them to that incredible victory. And the truth is that today, there's a very substantial, Zulu nation, relatively cohesive, that you can date back to then. So, with the third season, you could say, well, it's his demise. But on the other hand, he has set in place something that continues forward.
Sure. Sort of the narrative that came out of the 80s show was that, Shaka was a bloodthirsty, sort of ruthless leader who went around killing people, sometimes just to just subjugate. Have you guys sort of been? Was that narrative something that you desperately wanted to change in this series?
Well, I suppose, for me, he's a complex character.
Sure.
That's what's so important for me. In order to achieve what he achieved, he had to be a bit of a genius. Certainly a military genius. And I think, I would hate to think that we are either dumbing him down or we are sanitizing him. I would like to think that we show a complex man that has his dark side and has an extraordinary vision.
Sure.
That is what we would like to come out of the third season. He is certainly not an angel. He is a complex being with both the angel and the devil in him.
Sure.
So, it was very much in the casting of Lemo. I've worked with him and I feel like he is able to be both a warm and approachable character. He's also able to go very dark. So we are able to take it to both places. And that was important for me. Yeah.
I saw him in Back of the Moon a couple of years ago. He was quite a scary character in that one.
Yeah, he had a lot of fun in that.
And just talking about Heritage Day, it's all about reflecting on who we are as South Africans. When you think about your work, how do you hope your stories help people connect with our history and who we are as a people?
I feel complex myself about that in the sense that, I don't think of myself as a missionary, like somebody sort of making projects that are there to educate. But I've tended to do that. I'm sort of, so I have this thing. And there's no doubt with Shaka Ilembe, what we felt was that there was a real vacuum in terms of African heroic figures, that a young African, sort of in the context of cinema or television, that a young African could hold up and think, that's my hero kind of thing. And so it was very much, in creating Dingiswayo and Mkabai and Ntombazi for that matter, Zwide, the good and the bad. I still feel now there is a bit of a landscape that people can refer to. There's a reference.
Sure.
And I think it's a landscape that you can be proud of because it is complex and it is beautiful and it is it's a very, we wanted a dignified telling. And so, in the making, we very consciously have gone down a very classic route It's not like we're doing, oh, we're going to do the gritty Shaka, Shaka story. We wanted to tell, the great royal narrative in the great classic way. And it's reflected in all our choices, in the light, in the casting, in the camera angles, everything. Yeah, I mean, obviously with isiZulu there was an agenda, and the agenda was to draw attention to the crisis in the township schools, which I'm not sure. Well, it certainly put its front of, I mean, it made it very apparent.
Yeah.
And if I think forward, I am still very interested in historical work. I still feel like nobody has done anything that's really interesting on the 1980s, which is an extraordinary moment in our country. So it's something that I really want to do. And yeah. And but I've still got to find a way to do that. The frontier wars really interest me in the Eastern Cape, and there's nothing been done on that. So I, despite me saying, well, no, I don't necessarily want to do educational historical stuff. My inclination does partly go that way.
Mzilikazi as well, as a character, like his history is there's nothing that we can look at to sort of like hit more on his history, but he sort of grew up to he sort of like went on to be one of the most
Yeah,
successful leaders. In
yeah.
is something like is something like that maybe something you'd be considering maybe like a spin-off from Shaka Ilembe to like maybe Mzilikazi or Soshangane perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, both of those figures. I
Mm,
mean, they establish huge, powerful nations. And I would love there. I mean, I'm not sure that I can do the spin-off, but I would love there to be those spin-offs.
sure.
It's like we're setting up, I suppose what we want to do as well was to say to the broadcaster, there's an appetite for this sort of television,
Sure.
so that in fact they are prepared to invest in doing the projects that you're describing.
Sure.
And I'm hoping that we achieve that,
Sure. Sure.
so that other people can do that.
Yeah.
Um,
Like being a football fan myself, I've always wondered why nothing's been ever done on, say, the formation of Kaizer Chiefs, like the history behind Kaizer Chiefs or Pirates or
yeah,
what, like stories like that, and you know South African history. I think it's very it's very interesting, but it's not. It hasn't been explored in terms of um, cinema and drama and
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, Chiefs and Pirates are an extraordinary phenomenon. And in fact, curiously, in the 1980s, Kaiser and his lawyer approached us, sort of talking about doing some kind of film about Kaiser Chiefs.
Okay.
But it didn't ever happen. And in fact, the very first little film I made, sort of barely out of film school, was a soccer drama. And I used real soccer players. I mean, I don't know if you would even know, there was a guy called Thomas Hlungwane, who at the time was the most expensive player in the country.
Sure.
And he was known as Who's Fooling Who. He
Yeah.
was my lead. And Dichaba, I mean, as Chiefs player was his support. So I was using real sort of soccer players.
Sure.
So the phenomenon of soccer really interests me. And I mean, it's not for nothing that we did Zone 14 as
Yeah.
well. But of course, doing a Chiefs drama, it's a period piece, so you kind of need substantial budget. But
Sure.
you're right, it's something that absolutely should be done.
Sure. Sure. And in terms of in terms of like representation, how do you feel? How do you sort of make sure that you represent in a way that it feels authentic and all the different communities are sort of involved in your project?
Well, it's something we're very conscious of.
Sure.
Um, we strive for, I say, the illusion of authenticity because, I mean, there's so little records of what was going on in the 18th century.
Yeah.
I mean, the 19th century picks up, but in the 18th century, there's very little. So you're relying on praises, you're relying on people's memories, you're relying on paintings. But we do an enormous amount of research. Research is sort of always top of our agenda, right from Easel. I mean, that is what the first thing that we go to.
Sure.
And, we certainly, attempt to communicate with everybody that we are representing.
Okay.
So, in the last season, we went into Eswatini. And so, we went there, we spoke to the king, we cast in that space. We try to be respectful. But invariably, quite often within communities, there are divisions.
Sure.
So if you talk to one division, the other division are not happy. For example, we understand, at the moment we are hoping to do a narrative within the Mpondo with King Faku, and there is the East Mpondo and the West Mpondo, so
yeah.
We somehow have to straddle that. So that is always complicated, and sometimes we don't entirely win that battle.
Sure. I'm sure the members of the Ndwandwe clan sort of weren't completely happy with how Zwide was portrayed in the show.
Well, there's extraordinarily little written about them, apart from these notions of Ntumbazi as this witch queen with, these hyenas and
Sure.
and the notion that she cut off people's heads and preserved them. So in fact, we tried to complexify the characters beyond that, beyond what was written. So for example, in the beginning, Zwide's aggression has a lot to do with the fact that the Ndwandwe are in drought. And in order for his community to survive, he has to go out there and raid cattle in order to protect his own community. So, look, there's no doubt we created dark characters, but boy, everybody loves them. And I kind of, I certainly have wept for Zwide. Look, I think Wiseman does such an extraordinary job of creating Zwide that you can't see him as a one-dimensional person.
Sure.
I'd be very surprised if people didn't mourn with him when he mourned his sons.
Yeah, that was quite an emotional scene. It was you sort of did sort of like feel sorry for him for going through that.
Yeah, but I mean historically they bewitched and they killed Dingiswayo. That's the history of it. So and the reports are that Ntumbazi took the heads and preserved them. So those things are rooted in history.
Sure. How much were you influenced by the 86 show?
I mean, there was much I admired about it. I watched it-ish then, and I haven't watched it again. I thought that they did they used locations incredibly well, and I thought they used crowds incredibly well. But beyond that, I felt like, the performances were very one-dimensional. And the gaze was the European gaze. So no, it was not a big reference for us.
Uh-huh. Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, that's everything covered. Yeah, no, thanks for your time, Angus. And yeah, once again, season two was phenomenal, and geez, can't wait for
Well, I
season
hope
three.
we don't disappoint now. Yeah,
Do
no, we
you
got
know
it.
when
We got.
it's coming? When do you planning for it to come out?
I would imagine like the latter part of next year, so sort of September-ish next year.
Okay.
Um, this is day one today,
Wow.
and we're going back onto quite an incredible set. The set for season three is astonishing.
Yeah.
There's a 4-year gap between the end of season two and he is at his most powerful. So it's
Uh,
pretty art departments have done incredible things.
Sure. Where are you filming in KZN or?
No, we split it between KZN and in fact a little in Eastern Cape, and our sets are built an hour out of Joburg on an incredible piece of land that is absolutely enormous and has no power lines, nothing in the way. It's just big landscapes.
Sure.
So it's been a real privilege being able to work here.
I was wondering how you were able to sort of get those huge landscapes and maybe not pick up like a little power line in the background or something like that.
Well, I mean, that's the pleasure of the place that we're on. I mean, obviously, one of the reasons we can't go back to the original landscapes because
Yeah.
they're all built up.
Yeah.
So we have to go in search of pristine, unspoiled landscapes, and some of them we found in the Eastern Cape. We shot in the Nkandla forest a lot.
Okay.
We shot in an area very unknown near Moy River.
Okay.
That huge waterfall at the Kwabe is close to Moy River. But I mean, I never knew of that waterfall before.
Sure.
So there are incredible unseen sites in South Africa that we are using, and then with the third season, we really want to capitalize on big landscape. So yeah, we hope we don't disappoint.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you for your time, Angus.
Okay, Lunga.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Cheers.
You managed to get me on the first day, the first Zoom. Okay. All right.
Okay. Thanks.
Great. All
Okay.
right.
Cheers.
Bye.
Cheers.